Why was he so messy with the education he had? This is definitely an example of being overconfident with what you do know, but not respecting or considering what you don't know. When we go to him turning his cell phone on before he got back to Pullman, he understood that police would pull a suspect list from phone data around that house around the time of the murders, and he was avoiding his phone ending up on that data. He was thinking about how to avoid becoming a suspect. What he was missing was, how do you limit data if you are a suspect? So he shouldn't have turned his phone on before he got back to Pullman. He wasn't considering that as he went on. Now, when we say phone data showed that he stalked that house at least 12 times between August and the date of the murder, it's very likely that once he reached the decision point that he was going to carry out a murder, that he stalked that house a lot more, but he turned his phone off on those times later on, so those wouldn't show up. He also showed environmental ignorance, and what do I mean by that? His education was at DeSales University in Pennsylvania, which is a university of less than 2,000 people in a community of less than 15,000 people. Environment there is going to be much different than the University of Idaho, which has over 11,000 students in a community of 25,000. Washington State University, a student population of 27,000. Why is that significant? He underestimated the number of cameras that would be around that he could get picked up on in that environment, and therefore didn't think about it. Also, he drove back and forth for 3 times in the half hour before finally stopping. Why? Well, his previous stalking probably suggested that the house would be dark, the people would be asleep by 3:30. This is also environmental ignorance. I mentioned this in the very first video, that the day of the murder, University of Idaho, Big Sky Conference, Washington State University, Pac-12, both had home games that day. That changes the energy and the vibe in the downtown nightlife. It also extends student activity in after hours, so you're much more likely to have people awake longer that night. For example, Zaina ordered DoorDash at 4 a.m. That night. He should have known that. He didn't, because DeSales doesn't have a football team, doesn't have that kind of environment. He'd never experienced it before. He did not take into account how the environment he's in is different from the one he has experience with. And he was basing his planning on stuff he knows and not taking into account what he didn't know.